Arthur was the third child of a large family of 7. The family lived in a relatively small town where both his parents worked as high school teachers. Years before his birth, Arthur's father had purchased a house there and had settled along with his wife. In the beginning, things seemed to work out pretty well for the family. The father's pay wasn't much, but it allowed for his 3 sons to go to school, eat 3 meals a day, and go out every other week for a family night. However, as the family enlarged to give way for 2 more siblings, things became tough. Arthur was 5 at the time. He was what one would describe a grumpy child. He didn't like the extra attention given to his younger sisters. He always felt cramped for room in the family car. At school, he saw his friends who talked about their quiet families, how they had their own toys, how no one could touch them without their permission. They had huge Lego sets and even had video games. Arthur, on the other hand, only had his 4 siblings and a couple of board games, which he got tired of playing. He looked at his friends longingly. "I wish I could be happy too," he thought to himself. Just as Arthur turned 9, his mother decided to step in and work as well. As she no longer had to give the extra attention to the younger girls, she was able to make that shift. Soon, she managed to land a job at the same high school the father was working at. With the increased family income, the parents were able to construct a few more things around their house. This included a small shed and treehouse. In fact, they were even able to build a few more rooms for the children. With the extra space in the house and the better car, Arthur's complaints were answered and he finally had some of the space he wanted. On his 10th birthday, Arthur was given his first PlayStation. Now Arthur was able to relate to his friends at school. He was even able to bring them over at the treehouse for a few sleepovers. However, throughout the following years, Arthur noticed that his friends were getting newer video games almost whenever they asked for it. They seemed to have better stuff for their bedrooms too. Even their clothes seemed to look better. He did not like his clothes, which he thought were boring. But the tipping point was when, after joining high school, at the age of 16, some of his friends seemed to have their own cars. He didn't have one. He asked his parents about whether they could give him one. However, they only had the 2 cars for the family, and Arthur was told that he could share the old Chevy truck with his older brother, who had yet to move to another city. The problem was that the truck was rarely ever free. He looked at his friends longingly. "I wish I could be happy too," he thought to himself. He didn't understand his brothers either though. He couldn't understand how they seemed to have accepted their life as it is. But Arthur knew that this way of living wasn't for him. His friends seemed to be spending much better lives than them. They had far more at their disposal. They were living in beautiful homes, and that was what mattered. Just as Arthur was graduating high school, his father got promoted to an administrative position at his workplace, and once again Arthur saw his family's circumstances change. They moved into a better house shortly after, and Arthur was finally given a beautiful car as a present on his 18th birthday. It was finally time for him to move forward and leave his home for college. Arthur wanted to earn a lot of money, but he also wanted to be relatively free. So, someone recommended a degree in IT, seeing as he was himself fascinated by coding and things related to computers. After graduating college, Arthur went to a few places for interviews and got selected as a fresh-level employee at a software house. However, as a junior employee, he didn't particularly like how he was looked at. Most of his colleagues already had a few years on him, and they seemed to enjoy better benefits than him. Arthur, on the other hand, felt as if he wasn't paid enough. He also felt as if everyone treated him as if he were a kid. He looked at his colleagues longingly. "I wish I could be happy too," he thought to himself. At age 29, Arthur had already been in the software house for about 6 years. He was now enjoying a good package, a nice car by the company, a pretty good salary. He had his own office. He had begun dating as well. There was a girl who he had been dating fairly regularly. Her name was Claire. She was quirky and funny. She also seemed to have an interesting job. He was even considering a proper relationship with her. However, his friends seemed to be against relationships. They dated somewhat randomly and seemed to be with far more attractive women, and it felt as if they were really enjoying their dating life. Looking at them and hearing about their wild stories, Arthur felt unsure about Claire. He didn't want to lose her, but she was getting in the way of what he thought he liked. He looked at his friends longingly. "I wish I could be happy too," he thought to himself. So he broke up his connection with Claire and planned to enjoy life like his friends were enjoying. As the years passed by, Arthur ticked one milestone after the other, trying to stay ahead of the curve. At just the age of 37, Arthur had already become a part of the upper management at the major corporation, which had just started as a software house 30 years ago. He was earning well, meeting useful people, dating beautiful women, living in a relatively posh area. He was in the fast lane, moving forward. As a token of gratitude from his company, Arthur was given a couple of tickets and some extended vacations. He now had pretty much the lifestyle he always wanted. He could buy the things he was yearning to buy just 2 decades ago. So Arthur went to Italy for his vacation. But on his trips, as he had time to slow down, Arthur noticed the people around him. He could hear people laughing lightly with each other. He could hear children playing silly stepping games at street corners. There were even some who were playing board games in the public places. The same board games he used to play with his siblings back in their old house. He noticed that almost everyone had someone they could spend their time with. There were couples in the buses, the planes. There were families trying the street food. Friends were urging each other to try on the exotic pieces of jewelry. It was at that point, at the age of 37, that Arthur felt truly lonely. He sat down on a table at a cafe in the street that seemed to breathe life. He ordered a cup of coffee for himself as he began to contemplate. He wanted the best that life could give, and he had achieved all of that, but to what avail? It dawned on Arthur at that point that his life was empty. His friendships were shallow, his dates were random, and they hardly resulted in relationships. He had spent his past few years all alone. Arthur looked at the people around him longingly. I wish I could be happy too, he thought to himself. He was about to get up and leave when suddenly he heard a familiar voice. Arthur? He recognized that voice. It was Claire, and with her, clutching her hand, was a little girl. They sat down and talked about how things had gone in their lives as the child played with Claire's purse. Claire was just recovering from a 6-year-old relationship. She had gotten pregnant during the relationship and was currently on a vacation herself with her 5-year-old daughter. During their conversation, Arthur brought up how he wished that he could have a friend with him during the trip, and that if Claire could help him out. She offered him to come along with her and her daughter as they went out to explore the city. To be honest, I didn't think you were happy with me all those years ago, Claire remarked with a subtle smile as she began to gather her purse. I don't think I truly appreciated the things I ever had, Arthur replied. As they began to walk away from the cafe, the little girl pointed at the board game a couple of kids were playing. Mommy, could I have one too? She asked longingly. Arthur smiled warmly for the first time in years.